looking like $100,000 times 10.
What's good, everybody? What's good? It's your boy, Cardinal Bud Crawford, or E.S. Red, if that's what you won't call me. And we are back for another one. Alright, y'all, we got a new topic. Terence Crawford's TKO versus Errol Spence Jr. Alright, y'all, so let's break this down. Let's analyze the difference between a Terence Crawford TKO
Crawford for the moment, there's an overhand right, and another combination. Crawford for the moment, there's an overhand right, and another combination. Beautiful work.
and a Errol Spence Jr. TKO.
It's your boy Marcus Keys from the West End. And my questions,
And to be more specific, the Terence Crawford versus Sean Porter fight versus the Errol Spence Jr. versus Ordanius Ugas fight. Because there were two glaring differences between those two fights. There were some similarities, but there were some differences. The similarity was that they both were technically stopped. Ugas wasn't completely knocked out. He couldn't technically finish the fight. And Sean Porter the same way. Even though Sean Porter was completely conscious, he wasn't busted up or anything. It was his team prematurely threw the towel in, if you ask me. Was it necessary? That can be argued. Whether he just couldn't take it anymore, or he just can't do what he used to be able to do, that can be argued. But if you look at the fight from an analyst standpoint, or someone breaking down boxing from their standpoint, they're going to tell you that there was nothing stopping Sean Porter from continuing that fight other than his corner. Was he extremely frustrated? Yes. And was that frustration being shown in a way that he was probably not going to win the fight? Yes, it was. But let's break down the technical differences between those two fights when it comes to a technical knockout. Alright, when you look at the Errol Spence, well, let's start with the Terence Bud Crawford Sean Porter fight. You know, there are great things you could take from that fight from Terence Crawford, and there are flaws that you can take from that fight from Terence Crawford. Now, the great things you would take are that he was able to overwhelm Sean Porter. He's a much better fighter at that point in his career than Sean Porter was. He was landing shots at random, you know, shots that maybe shouldn't have been landing, were landing. He was able to pretty much do any and everything he wanted to do in the boxing ring versus Sean Porter. He was able to use his combinations. He was able to use his footwork. He was able to use the angles that he likes to use, not the Pacquiao type of angles, but the Terence Crawford type of angles. He was able to put all of that together for a masterful performance, and it led him to a victory versus Sean Porter. Now, the things that I would say were flaws in that fight were the fact that Sean Porter didn't belong in the ring, number one, with Terence Crawford at that point because of the 2-year layoff. I'm not saying that Sean Porter couldn't have given him a better fight if maybe he would have taken a tune-up, or he would have perhaps trained a little longer before that fight, because I heard some rumors even from inside his own camp that he didn't prepare correctly for the Terence Crawford fight. And I think even his own father and his team were saying that he wasn't sparring very hard, and he wasn't taking that fight very seriously. And this is the reason I said a few videos ago, you shouldn't get in the ring with your friends, because it can end up in a situation almost like you're throwing the fight. Now, I'm not saying that Sean Porter threw the fight. I'm not saying that, but it is looking like that fight wasn't as competitive as it was supposed to be. Now, whether Sean Porter gave his 100% all or Sean Porter just got in there to give his friend another victory, that could be debated. I don't know Sean Porter personally, so I don't have the means or the platform to ask him that question to his face like a man. But if I ever did run across Sean Porter and I was ever able to interview Sean Porter, I would definitely ask him, do you feel like you could have done a little bit more in that fight? Do you feel like your team threw in the towel prematurely? Do you feel like you should have trained harder for that fight? These are all questions that could be answered. And for that, I would give that fight a 5 on the technical knockout scale, because I think there was a lot that was left to be desired with that fight. And there was a lot more that Terence Crawford could have accomplished had the fight went on and Sean Porter showed a little bit more heart. Now, let's move on to Errol Spence versus Udanius Ugas. What are the glaring differences between that technical stoppage and the Terence Crawford technical stoppage? Well, the obvious reasons for Errol Spence and the good things and the bad things that he did, well, the obvious good things were that he was landing at random as well. He was getting to all of his spots. He was landing very solid body shots. He was landing amazing shots to Ugas' face and head and jaw area. And he was able to pretty much dictate the pace of that fight throughout the fight. Now, Ugas had some good spots. Ugas landed some shots. There was a point in the fight where he hit Errol Spence with a shot that knocked him back into the rope. And I think people thought that he was going to score a knockdown off of that. But Errol Spence held his own. He was able to come back, and he pretty much punished Ugas after that point. The things that he did right: landing solid body shots, not giving up any ground, continuing to fight at his pace, keeping his jab pumping. He did all the technical things that you're supposed to do in a boxing ring correctly in that fight. Now, where did he go wrong? He might have tried to get Ugas out of there a little earlier than he should have, and that allowed for Ugas to land a big shot that he probably shouldn't have landed. Now, the biggest glaring difference between the Spence fight and the Crawford fight is that Errol Spence was able to break bones in Udanius Ugas' face. And these were not like, well, he caught him with a random shot. No, he completely destroyed Udanius Ugas' eye sockets. And if you saw the ending of that fight, then you know what damage had been done to Udanius Ugas' eye sockets. And that if you were to compare those two technical knockouts and say, hey, which one of these were more brutal, then you would have to 100% say that it was the Ugas-Spence fight. It was way more brutal. There was way more technique used. The jab was used at perfect timing. He caused more damage to his opponent. I'm going to ask my subscribers, whoever watches this video, for me in the comment section, I want y'all to score those two technical knockouts. Who had the better? Out of 1 to 10, who had the better technical knockout? And I would like to break that down even further, because there are people saying that Terence Crawford has basically knocked out all of his welterweight opponents. Well, he didn't knock out Sean Porter. He scored a technical knockout, same as Errol Spence, except for Errol Spence's opponent truly could not continue. Sean Porter could have continued if it wasn't for his corner throwing in the towel. I think I'm going to leave it there for now. We're going to break this down some more. I might do a part 2 for this. So, once again, down in the comment section below, y'all score this fight from 1 to 10. What do you score Terence Crawford's technical knockout? And what do you score Errol Spence Jr.'s technical knockout? Me personally, I give Terence Crawford a 5. And I give Errol Spence Jr. a 8 out of 10. Y'all hit that like button for me. Share, subscribe. Holler at me on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. But you're more than likely to get a response on the tube. So holler at me over there if you want a response. It's your boy, a Cardinal, Bud Crawford, or E.S. Red, if that's what you want to call me. And we are not in.
So low, you would think I'm a no-show.